Hi, welcome to the Week 4 discussion. My name is Brian. 5 minutes is just not long enough, but here we go. Does Judy meet the requirements for OCD diagnosis? Here's what I know. There are essentially 4 parts to receiving a diagnosis for OCD according to DSM-5. There needs to be a presence of obsession, compulsion, or both. Let's address the first part, the obsession. Obsessions are defined by 2 parts, recurrent or persistent thoughts, urges, or impulses, and that the individual attempts to ignore or suppress such thoughts or urges. I think this is based on Judy sharing that the possibility that she might contract a disease or spread it to others dominates her waking hours. I feel this may be argued based on the fact that she's complaining about her elaborate cleaning and washing rituals. The key word here is complaining, which leads me to believe she's attempting to suppress them with her actions. That would be sufficient to satisfy the first requirement, but let's look at compulsion anyway. Compulsions are defined by 2 elements, repetitive behaviors that the individual feels driven to perform in response to an obsession, and the second part being that the behavior or mental acts are aimed at preventing or reducing anxiety or distress, and that they are excessive. So in this case, Judy explains that she does cleaning and washing rituals, which makes me believe there is a set of rules she follows and applies rigidly. I believe they are clearly excessive when it's stated that she takes prolonged showers and lengthy wiping and cleaning rituals after using the toilet. With the first part checked off for the diagnosis, I would move to the second section, which asks the questions about time. Are the obsessions or compulsion time-consuming, meaning that they take more than an hour a day? While I do not know the length of time a prolonged shower or wiping and cleaning rituals might be for this exercise, I will assume it's more than an hour. However, I'd want to ask the client the question to be sure. So this brings me to the third part. Can the obsessive-compulsive symptoms be attributable to the physiological effects of a substance or another medical condition? While that's unknown at this time, without knowledge otherwise, I'll just assume no. While I would want to ask the client, the information is not currently given. The only concern I have is the diagnosis can have a stigma and lasting effects, so I want to share that I wouldn't want to diagnose without that information, but if allowed to assume for this assignment, then I will. For this fourth element, I want to begin by sharing some thoughts. The fourth element specifically states about whether the disturbance can be better explained by another mental disorder. It is crucial we differentiate the difference between mental disorder and neurological disorders. McMasters in 2021 stated in a paper titled Neurobiological Substrate of Subclinical Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder in Children that OCD is now generally recognized as having a neurobiological cause. What this means, in many developing theories about OCD, the diagnosis is thought to be better suited to the medical field rather than the psychiatric field. The difficulty arises as McMaster later states that subclinical OCD, which is 2 to 8 times more common than OCD, can engender considerable suffering, including social withdrawal, anxiety, depressed mood, and excess somatic complaints. For clarity, subclinical OCD is defined as the presence of obsession and/or compulsion without functional impairment. All this to say that for now, with the way the DSM-5 defines OCD, I would argue that the fourth element of a disturbance that can better explain the mental disorder, such as a body dysmorphic disorder, organ disorder, hair pulling, skin picking, or an eating disorder, is not a better fit. I would feel confident in diagnosing based on the assumptions I made earlier regarding substance abuse and time spent on activities. However, if I was not able to make those assumptions, I would not feel comfortable diagnosing due to lack of information. Diagnosis to an individual such can produce a stigma, which is why I would err on the side of caution before freely diagnosing without further investigation. Now, let's talk about neurocognitive disorders just for a second. The 5th edition states that in DSM-5 provides a framework for the diagnosis of neurocognitive disorder based on 3 syndromes: delirium, mild neurocognitive disorder, and major neurocognitive disorder. So let's just talk about, because I don't think there's major or delirium, but the mild neurocognitive disorder is interesting. Is there evidence of modest cognitive decline from a previous level of performance based on concern from a knowledgeable and modest impairment in cognitive performance? I believe that her husband reporting she does not remember her son can meet this requirement. 2. The cognitive deficit does not interfere with capacity for independence. While not remembering her son is devastating, I do not see it interfering with her everyday activity. And 3. The cognitive deficits are not better explained by another mental disorder. Of course, learning more diagnoses for mental disorders will better help me answer this, but at this time, I can't think of any. Thank you. My name is Brian. This is my Week 4 discussion.